So now I'd like to introduce Dr. Tracy Bender, our speaker today. Tracy is an occupational therapist and the director of rehabilitation at Cancer and Neurology Partners of Nebraska. She received her doctorate in occupational therapy at Creighton University and is specialized in two emerging areas of practice: lymphedema therapy and cancer rehabilitation. She is also a certified restorative yoga instructor. Today, Tracy will be speaking on the power of meditation, mindfulness, and gratitude. Thank you so much, Dr. Tracy Bender, for joining us and speaking on such a wonderful topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me this morning. And I know it's beautiful outside. So, for those of you that have joined us, thank you for your time. I will do my best to make it worth your time this morning. And to the point of the topic we're speaking of today, the power of gratitude, meditation, and mindfulness, I actually switched the order of those on Emily, and there was a reason that I did that. And so, as I was putting this together and thinking through what I want you to know about these topics, I purposely put gratitude first. We're going to put meditation in the middle, and then we're going to kind of wrap it up with mindfulness and talking a little bit more about how we support our body, mind, and soul in this endeavor. So, with that being said, if you can advance that first slide for me. I apologize. Emily's going to have to help me with advancing slides because we have a little computer snafu on my part. So, thank you for doing that, Emily. I am going to tell you a little bit about my personal story today because I think that that is the best way that I can convey the message and also how to incorporate these things in your life. And so, with that, I'm going to give you some personal details that I'm comfortable sharing, but I also want to invite all of you to be involved in this. I may ask for some feedback. Please feel free to unmute yourself and give me some feedback and open the conversation because I think we'll all get a little bit more out of it that way. And I also will save some time at the end for questions. So, if it's not a conversation piece in the midst of this, if you want to save your question to the end, that's okay too. So, do feel free to unmute yourself and let me know if you have some valuable input to what we're talking about. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to start with gratefulness and just tell you a little bit about myself. As Emily said, I'm an occupational therapist and I do work in the specialty areas of lymphedema and cancer rehab. And to me, I would start this gratefulness journey by explaining to you that my family is my why for everything that I do. I was not raised in a traditional upbringing. In fact, I had a pretty rough upbringing. And so I'm not necessarily sitting here in front of you today as somebody who has a doctorate degree and is all put together, rather, somebody who's experienced a lot of things in life and who has needed to find each piece of this journey in order to be a healthy and well balanced individual. So, with that being said, I am an only child. My mother and father conceived me when they were in high school. My mom was 15, my dad was 16, and it was not an ideal circumstance by any means. They attempted to get married for a short period of time, and that didn't work out. And both of them struggled with addiction. So my father struggled very deeply with alcoholism, and my mother struggled with drug addiction. So that didn't make for a very good start. And fortunately, I had some really instrumental people in my life who stepped up at important times to provide things for me that I needed to move forward in life. So today, I stand before you as somebody who has built a family that I'm very proud of. And I've taken a lot of steps to get to that point because I didn't have great examples in my life of what parenting should look like or what being a wife should look like. And so I've had to reframe a lot of the experiences that I've had in life to kind of live up to what I wanted in life. And the person that you see on the right there is my grandmother. I lost her about 3 years ago, but because of her, and I apologize, it's a little emotional for me to talk about her, but because of her, I honestly am who I am today. And she gave me so many important life lessons that helped me to navigate what being a grateful human being looks like and how to dive deeper into being in the moment and understanding what I need to recover from the things that life throws at us. Go ahead and advance that next slide for me. Thank you. Okay, so this is probably, in my opinion, the most important thing that I'm going to talk to you about today. And I hope that you come away with a really different meaning or be able to apply this in your own life. And the statement is, I get to. I would say through every phase of my life, through the difficult teenage years, through the college years, through the doctorate school years, through building a family, through becoming a professional, uh, there's a lot of things that you talk to your person about. My grandma was my person. And so when I would call her and I would say, man, I have to do this today, or I have this test coming up, or I've got to go to the grocery store, or I've got to chase my kids around this weekend. I don't have any time to do the things I need to do. She would listen to me patiently, let me get out everything that I had to say, and then she would kindly remind me that instead of saying that I have to, um, I get to. And so when you reframe the things that you're thinking about in life in this way, it really impacts you. And honestly, to this day, I'm not sure that she understands how impactful this has been in my life, but especially in the last 3 years that I don't have her to go to, it has been much more impactful. And I share this statement with people a lot. So I want you each to think of one thing right now. If you have a piece of paper in front of you, fantastic. If you don't, just try to make a mental note. One thing that you have to do today that was maybe something you weren't looking forward to, and see if you can think to yourself in a way that you can reframe that to say, I get to do this instead of I have to do this. We'll go to that next slide. So I want to begin by talking about filtering, or what it looks like to filter everything through a gratitude lens. We can go directly into meditation or mindfulness, but I think if we can actually get ourselves to use gratitude as the first defense filter, and this isn't human nature. Typically, we filter things through stress and worry versus gratitude, and we have to be really intentional about filtering things through a gratitude lens. And so we're going to talk about that first. The definition of gratitude is the positive state of being grateful, an overwhelming feeling of appreciation and thankfulness, and the desire to return kindness to others. So we'll go to that next slide. Now, if you're going through something really tough, especially something like a cancer diagnosis, something that you're chronically dealing with, such as being in pain or trying to heal from a difficult procedure or chemotherapy or radiation therapy, you might look at me and say, okay, how do I really do that? So let's cut through the fluff. And isn't this dog absolutely adorable? How do we use a gratitude lens when we're dealing with hardship? Well, that's a really good question, right? And it really boils down to the fact that it doesn't come naturally for us to do this. It is something that we have to be intentional about. It's a choice to filter it through this lens versus letting our emotions or our pain or our experiences dictate that by way of worry and stress. Okay, that is the habit that the majority of us are in. But it's important for us to realize that it is a habit and we do have a choice. So, with that being said, think about what you're dealing with in your life right now. Okay. If you're on this call because you are a medical professional and you're looking for strategies to give to patients, or if you're on this call because you are dealing with cancer or some other type of chronic ailment, or more than one of those things, or you're on this call because you are a caregiver and you want to help your loved ones get through this and you're just not quite sure how, well, don't forget that being a caregiver is also a difficult role. These are all things that we have to be intentional about. So think about what you're dealing with right now. Sometimes it's easier to start by looking back at something you've dealt with in the past than something that's raw and in the moment. And so I'll give an example of this. When I first was married, and I have been married twice, I'm in my second marriage. So my first marriage, I was very young. And I was told about 6 months into the marriage that I had a condition called endometriosis, and that if I wanted to have children, I would need to do that quickly because they wouldn't be able to guarantee that I would be able to get pregnant. Well, being a mother is something that I've always wanted to do. And I think when I heard those words, I kind of panicked. And so my husband and I at the time decided that we were going to prioritize that, even though, if we were being honest with ourselves, we really weren't ready for that in life. So we went on and we did the thing, and we were blessed to get pregnant. And about 6 weeks into that pregnancy, I suffered a miscarriage. And that was never on my radar. Going through a miscarriage wasn't something that I ever thought would happen to me, nor did I even imagine how painful that could be. Because that moment that you find out you're pregnant, it's terrifying, but it's exciting at the same moment. And so losing that pregnancy so quickly after I found out that it existed just wasn't something I was prepared to deal with. And so I kind of pulled myself together, and within 3 months, we were pregnant again. And about 8 weeks into that pregnancy, I lost that pregnancy as well. And so at the time, this was just devastating to me. And I thought, well, maybe this is a sign that this isn't something that I'm capable of doing. Um, I took some time and I sat with it. And of course, nobody really knows what to say to you. Sometimes the stories that are shared are not helpful. And uh, sometimes the words that people give you don't really make sense in the moment. So I took that experience and I decided, okay, this isn't right for me right now. So I'm going to have some faith and I'm going to step away from this and I'm going to work on myself instead. So I did that. And now I can look back at that part of my life and I can be grateful for the things that I learned from that time period, even though it was extremely painful for me in the moment. So you can go back in those moments of time and use that lens now, and that may help you in the present moment when we're dealing with something that's beyond our imagination, something we never thought that we were going to go through. Please go to that next slide. So even something as difficult as a cancer diagnosis, something that totally shocks us, and it's the big bad wolf in our society. It's this word that we hope or we never imagine we will hear. We get to choose how we look at that. Okay. And when I work with a patient in therapy, I often see them as soon as the first week of their diagnosis. I often get to work with people prior to going through any part of treatment, including surgery. And so I will get to sit down with somebody and help them form the lens of how we are going to look at this. And I tell people truthfully and honestly that I fully believe people can live a better version of themselves after cancer than they did before. And so that's something that we talk about, and we dive deep into what that looks like for people. And that doesn't mean it won't be hard or it won't be painful or we'll have miserable days or we'll have days that overwhelm us. It also means that we can include hope and we can include gratitude for the people who are stepping up around us and for the good things that are happening or the positive days that we feel good. We still get to choose to focus on those over the ones that are worrisome or painful or devastating. Please go to that next slide for me. And I want to talk about the how and the why a little bit more. Okay. Some of these are cliche things that people might say, but I really want you to figure out how it applies to you in your life. So, the how and the why. You get to decide what's important to you. Okay. Um, Having a cancer diagnosis or being diagnosed with a chronic disease, or from a medical standpoint, if you're working with people who are going through these things, your perspective changes greatly. We have a really different perspective on life and our first world problems when we have to decide what's important to us. This is your canvas, okay? It's your life, your experience, your canvas. You get to decide. We can't choose every circumstance, but we can choose how we respond to the circumstances. We get to make our time count with those around us that we love. We can live with intention. So, that looks different every day. We can get up every day and decide, I'm going to be intentional about this today. And that can look different every day. We get permission for that. Providing a beautiful example for those around us. So when we go through something hard, it's okay to have transparent days where we don't have any option, but we need to cry today. Or we get up and we're having a pretty good day and we're feeling strong. Maybe we're in between treatments and we get the opportunity to decide what that looks like. Okay. You have people watching you every day. Your caregivers are watching you, your children are watching you, your parents might be watching you. And so as you go through this really difficult thing, you also get to provide an example of what it looks like to be resilient and to be grateful, even though you're going through something tough. Because sometimes we want to shield our kids for things that are hard, from things that are hard, but there's nothing saying that they won't go through similar things in life, right? Remember how kindness feels and pay it forward, because if you can't navigate a positive day for yourself, sometimes the only alternative that you have is to go do something nice for somebody else or make somebody else's day. Making the world better, or even your world better, it starts with you. Love's the greatest emotion in existence, and so our fallback, if nothing else feels right, is to at least experience love. If you don't like your day to day, then you can make a change. And excuses don't equal results. Okay. So if we can go to that next slide, what does practicing gratitude look like day to day? It can be as simple as being present, mindfulness, which we'll talk more about, purposely spending time, whether that be doing something that is important to you or fills your cup, or it's spending time with people, relationships that mean something to you. Either receiving or giving love, receiving or giving kindness, intentionally listing our blessings, journaling and reflection. Sometimes we can't see it in the moment, but if we sit back and we reflect, we definitely get a different view of that. Listening. Sometimes when we're in a state of stress, we have a lot to express, but if we take the time to listen, we can get just as much out of that. Unplugging. There's a lot of technology in the world, there's a lot of things that distract us, and sometimes we just need to purposely turn those things off and sit with our feelings for a moment. I know this is really hard for the younger generation, and I see this with my kids a lot. They don't know how to just sit with their feelings and understand what it is that they've experienced for the day. And I think we can't process feelings and make different decisions for ourselves if we don't know what we're actually feeling. So, unplugging is sometimes necessary. And then meditation and mindfulness. If you can skip to that next slide for me. Meditation versus mindfulness, and kind of understanding the difference between these two things. So, the definition of meditation would tell us that it's a practice that involves focusing your attention on one thing, um, while mindfulness would be kind of an awareness of the present moment. And so, the two things can happen at the same time, but they're sort of implemented in different ways. The next slide is meditation. When we say we're focusing our attention, that can happen in a lot of different ways. So, if you've heard of meditation, but you've never tried it, or you've tried it and the only thing that you've done is sit and try to be still, our thoughts race. It's very difficult to do without practice. And so sometimes there's other forms of meditation that make more sense. And as you learn some of those lesser forms or guided meditations, then you're able to get into a place where you can sit and actually quiet your mind and be able to focus on purpose. There are a lot of strategies that can be helpful in learning how to meditate. So, if we're focusing our attention on one thing or one area for a prolonged period of time and our mind wants to wander, we can use tools to bring our focus back in. And that could be something like imagery or a mantra, a saying that you say to yourself. And if you just can't get it, sometimes doing guided meditations is very helpful. Just being able to close your eyes and your mind and listen to somebody walk you through steps of a meditation. And there's lots of things out there available, different topics for meditation. So if it's pain relief, if it's deep sleep that you're needing, if it's stress relief, if it's financial relief, there's lots of topics of guided meditations out there that can help focus our attention where we need it. This can involve our spirituality, improving our mood. It can also be used to develop general mindfulness in everyday settings. And then activities that lead to meditation can be really individualized. If we can skip to that next slide. For me personally, I meditate the most deeply when I exercise, running especially for me. So if I've got a stressful thing that I need to focus on, or there's a problem that I'm trying to solve, I will intentionally think about that problem or that the idea that I need to kind of swirl on right before I go for a run. And then as I run, I will fall into a meditative state and I will get home and have to grab a pen and paper because I'll come up with so many ideas while I'm doing that, that I will need to get them down on paper before I forget about them. Okay, so before we jump into the types of meditation, would anybody be willing to unmute and just tell me what is a form of meditation that works for you? And it doesn't have to be something on this list.
I will. I color using colored pencils
Yeah,
where it's just quiet and it's an instant difference. I mean, it's instant gratification.
right.
And during that time is when I'm either thinking, focusing on something, or it will come to me, like you just mentioned, for running.
So, do you use that as a relaxation technique because you're stressed and you just need to get out of that? Or do you set an intention before you start?
It depends. It's almost like it's part of my self-care.
I love that.
It's because if I can't go out and run or walk or whatever it may be right now, I can do that. It it's like a go-to. It's like I know I can go sit in my chair with my stuff and feel better.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that's in our control. And I think a lot of people resonate with what you're talking about because it's something you can complete, right? It's satisfying to watch it come
Yeah,
together and watch the beautiful colors go onto the paper.
right.
Um, yeah, I love that example. Thank you for sharing that.
And then I mean, I have cards. I will color for somebody's birthday, anniversary, whatever, say hello. I will color those and mail them to them, and they love that.
That's
So,
incredible because that's an act of kindness at the same time.
so to me, it's like, I said, I'm not a patient, I'm a person. I had to keep changing my language. But they just look at them like this work of art that we're going to hang on to it forever. Okay.
Yeah. It's
So,
beautiful and it's intentional because it was your time. Like it doesn't matter what that artwork turns out looking like. If
oh,
somebody takes the time to do something like that for you, you know they spent that time being intentional. I
right.
tell my kids that all the time. I don't care, but if you sit down for 10 minutes and create me something, I would have that 9 times over 10 of something that you would purchase me because it's just that much more meaningful. I
I
love
agree.
that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Any other examples?
I like to do guided meditations. I have the Calm app, and I usually
Yeah.
do their daily meditation. I just, it helps me to have somebody talk me through it.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. And there are so many out there now.
Mhm.
Headspace is another one that people say often. I came up with a guided meditation that I have on my resilience website, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But it is just for overall wellness, and it's got a few different strategies in it. So if you've never tried a guided meditation, it's pretty powerful. It it will teach you how to build that mantra. It will teach you some breath work, or it will just teach you to intentionally feel your body. Often, unless we're having pain and our body's really talking to us, we don't sit down and listen to what our body is telling us, or we don't just sit and be grateful for the many functions that happen all the time that keep us alive. So, even being grateful for those things when we can't be grateful for anything else in a day can really make a difference. Is there any particular type of meditation that you go to?
Um, I don't know. I do a variety. Um, I don't. I don't think there's any one particular type.
Okay. You know, sometimes if people really struggle with sleep, and our sleep is so important to us because our body does its best cellular repair and recovery when we sleep. Guided meditations can be really good to help us get to deeper states of sleep. and be able to fall asleep and quiet our mind. So that's a good use of those as well.
The sleep ones don't work for me
Okay.
because the minute someone stops talking, I wake up.
Oh, darn it. Okay. Anybody else have anything to share? Okay, so we'll start going through, and please interrupt me if you have one. But the types of meditation that I have listed here, and there are more, but these are some pretty common ones. In my research of types of meditation, I've come across at least 25 types of meditation. Some of those will actually fall in line with our religious beliefs or uh, different things that we're into as far as physical activities. So, some of them don't make sense for everyone. But just to give you some ideas, mindfulness meditation would basically be just kind of being aware of what's going on around us. And so I do believe the last gal that popped on there might have been sitting outside. It looked like maybe she was sitting outside. And so, maybe it's just simply that you go out and sit out on your patio and you listen to um, the birds chirping and the sun shining and any little noises that are coming along, or feeling the warmth of the sun or the breeze on your face. Those kinds of moments that you're just taking in can be a form of meditation. Mantra meditation would definitely be having some type of a saying or a statement. And that can be something that's given to you if you're not really sure where to start, or it can be a word like wellness or love, gratitude, kindness, or if you need an actual statement to help you deal with something that you're actually physically feeling for the day, that can help too. So you can set an intention with your mantra and make sure that you're kind of focused on that. And a lot of times with mantras, we use breath work as well. So we may inhale, and as we exhale, we start then with the word. So we inhale gratitude, and sometimes the exhale has nothing attached to it. Sometimes the exhale would have a different word attached to it. All right. Transcendental meditation is going to be a silent meditation. Some people will be able to just simply lay and clear their mind and be able to go into a state of meditation. This does take practice. So sometimes we do silent meditation and we have to start with a mantra or breathing, and it will then get us into that state of just complete silence and stillness. Loving and kindness meditation, I would definitely go back to the example that our first gal gave us, where she basically does an act of kindness. It's a meditative state for her, but then she goes ahead and sends that on to somebody else. And then when you receive that, or you are the sender of that, that gives you a different sense within yourself as well. Breath meditation would be simply focusing on the breath and being able to take a good inhale and exhale and feel that go through the body. So when I work with patients in my clinic on breath work, I tell patients to take a deep breath in. We smell the roses or breathe in through the nose. So we're going to take a nice deep breath in. As you breathe in through the nose, I tell people breathe to the top of your top or the top of your head. So take that deep breath in and breathe in until you feel it literally, it can't go any higher. So let's do that together now. Nice deep breath in through the nose. And then when you've met that maximum air capacity, you'll kind of feel the lungs fill up and it hits the top. Go ahead and release that out through the mouth. When we breathe in through the nose, we can fill the lungs more fully. Breathing out through the mouth is a much easier way to kind of let everything out, escape the body, be a little more intentional with the forcefulness that it comes out with. And so let's try that one more time. We're going to breathe to the top of the top. When that comes in, we'll feel the lungs expand. It reaches the top of our shoulders or our head, whatever the sensation that you feel. When we exhale, we're going to breathe to the bottom of the bottom, meaning that as we exhale and we pull that breath out, I want you to let that breath out until you actually feel like you could reach where you would bear down for a bowel movement. Okay, that sounds really funny, but when we exhale, often we only let out about half of that breath. So let's try that together. We're going to breathe into the top of the top. Exhale to the bottom of the bottom. When we exhale to the bottom of the bottom, we actually should engage our core muscles to get that last half of the breath out of our body. So that takes practice, and it's something that we can sit and do. And it does take work to be able to take those breaths in. If you're somebody that struggles with shortness of breath, that full breath into the top of the top and bottom of the bottom may not be possible for you. So you've got to find a comfortable level to do that at. Okay. Um, Vipassana or Vipassana, however you pronounce that, is mindfulness practice. This is typically related to a Buddhist practice where they are wanting to observe basically what's going on, the feelings they're having, the sensations in their body, not necessarily to change them, but to gain insight into what they're feeling. I also see this happening in mindfulness meditation when we do a body scan, when we basically purposely maybe flex and or relax different portions of our body as we go through. We are paying attention in that moment to where we hold stress in our body, and also gratitude or awareness of each thing that happens. As our muscles relax, sometimes they quiver, sometimes we tense them and they don't want to untense, they might have some cramping. We will notice that if we're laying flat or we're sitting back, there may just be a part of our body that gets really uncomfortable. And doing a meditation or a body scan, it's really hard for people the first time they do it because we don't just sit with our bodies like that very often. We're kind of always on the go. So it's important that if you get really uncomfortable in one spot, and sometimes this happens to me up in my neck or behind my shoulder blades when I lay flat on the floor, I realized then that I really hold a lot of stress in those areas. So it's good awareness for us to have. If we are aware of where we're holding our stress, then we can do more to get rid of that stress. Visualization meditation is actually how I learned to meditate. I had a cross country coach when I was growing up who taught us visualization before meets. So we would do our jog and our stretch, and then we would have to go find a quiet place to lay for 5 minutes. And he would have us visualize our happy place. And for me, it was laying in the middle of a field of flowers with a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of wind blowing. And it would take me into a calmer state so that I could start my race without being really, really nervous. And also, I would do some imagery before I was done with that of me crossing the finish line in whatever position I was hoping to be in. So, being able to see what my end game is. Chakra meditation, if you've ever seen a picture of the chakras, basically it's kind of a person sitting crisscross applesauce or Indian style, and it's got the colors of the rainbow going right down the center of the body. So we've got these 7 chakras. What we want to do is align those chakras. And so it's thought that maybe if we're holding stress in certain parts of our body or due to certain traumas, we have chakras that are out of alignment. And so we want to basically get everything to center and to vibrate down the center of our body. So we have clarity of mind and we can focus on what we need. There's a lot to chakra meditation, so it's something that you probably would need to learn more about if it's something that you wanted to try. But there's a lot of great information out there on that. Prayer is definitely another form of meditation that a lot of people use. And this doesn't have to be necessarily associated with religion. It can be spirituality, it can be um, people's connection with the universe or nature. Nature is a really powerful way for us to meditate as well. Sometimes just walking in nature, being in nature is great. Other people find this during gardening or working with flowers, getting their hands in the dirt and in the earth, or walking out in the grass with no shoes on and just connecting with the ground, feeling grounded. Being in water is also a form of meditation. There's a place here in town that's it's a float place. I can't think of the name of it. Something float. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, feel free to shoot in there. But you're basically just floating in a pot of water and can find that peaceful state. Sometimes people do this in the shower or they do it in the bathtub. So those are options, or even getting out into a body of water like a lake or the ocean can be very meditative. Like I said, for myself, exercise is kind of my happy place of meditation. And I don't know if you're a runner, if you've ever heard of what's called a runner's high, but there's probably the first mile of your run, you really feel that. You feel all the aches and the pains and being short of breath. But if you can push past that, we almost get into this euphoric state where your body sort of feels invincible and you're running, but you don't necessarily feel the pains of it or the shortness of breath. It just feels like kind of an out of body experience. And I know that people experience that with yoga and other forms of exercise as well. Tai Chi is another good one. It's actually an ancient Chinese martial arts. It is a series of slow or gentle movements and postures. And once we get into those, we can quiet the mind, control the breath, and get into those meditative states. So those are some examples. If anybody has any additional ones that they would like to add, I know you gave me a couple of them already, but with your mind being triggered here, if you've got anything else, please hop in there and let me know. Okay, with that, we're going to go to the next slide. Mindfulness then is going to be our conscious awareness of a present moment. And this is developed through practice. It's the ability to kind of stop and take in a moment, whether it's in nature, whether it's an experience you're having. Maybe it's being with people that you love and just kind of taking in the moment of what that love or that gratefulness feels like. There's really no limit to what could be mindfulness practice to you. It really boils down to what's meaningful to you and how you experience love and kindness and gratitude. Techniques can be used, such as mindful breathing, to notice how you feel in a certain moment, or just taking that mental snapshot. If we can hop to that next slide. This is an example for me that was really powerful this last year. So I had the opportunity this year to take my family to Puerto Rico. My oldest daughter plays college basketball, and she had a tournament in Puerto Rico. And so I had the opportunity to take my whole family to this absolutely stunningly beautiful place. And about 5 years ago, my husband and I decided to get more intentional about teaching these things to our kids. And so we stopped getting our kids excessive amounts of presents and gifts on holidays and decided that we would have experiences instead. And I have to say that this has been very transformational for us. And it has made our kids much more grateful and much deeper people. It forces them to unplug. It forces them to be in the moment, to build relationships, to cherish memories. And so, this picture that I have of my husband standing on this beach, it was a very mindful moment of me thinking to myself, I never want to forget what I feel in this moment. How grateful I am to be here in this incredible place with these people I love, being kind to one another. You know, kids fight, right? But in this moment, they didn't have anything to fight about. It was too overwhelming and too breathtaking, and they were overcome with gratefulness. This island that we were at, actually, we took a ferry from Puerto Rico to this island that there's a few people that live on it, but it's pretty much uninhabited. And this is one of the top 10 most beautiful beaches in the world. It's called Flamenco Beach. I can't even describe to you. I mean, you're looking at the beautiful picture, but it's crystal clear water up to your chest. The sand was like powder. There was so much wildlife on the island because there's not a bunch of interruption from businesses and buildings and the hustle and bustle of life. And it was just an opportunity to take in something that I told my kids, you will likely never see something like this again in your life. So take this in. And they did. I noticed each one of them go off by themselves, take a moment, they found a crab, or they were just sunbathing and taking it in, or they were snorkeling in the water, or they were taking photos together to have memories of that moment. And so this was really powerful. And obviously, it's probably easy to do on a beach, but it can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be on this most beautiful beach in the world. Okay, if we can skip to that next slide. So, we're talking about practicing gratitude, meditation, and mindfulness. And these things can coexist. We might be grateful and mindful at the same time. We might complete a meditation, and at the end of that meditation, we're really grateful for the new way that we feel, or the pain relief that we experienced, or just the ability to take down our stress. I think we can be mindful in almost every moment. So, it really then it comes back to us making decisions that lead to these moments. We have to be intentional about finding time in nature, exercising, choosing to meditate or do yoga. If we don't have even more than 5 minutes in a day, we could certainly sit and do some breath work. Swimming, jogging, walking, running, biking. Holiday time is a good time to pull some of this in when we get the opportunity to be with those we love and get a little bit of time off. Art, any form of art. We talked about the meditative coloring, and that could be a form of guided meditation because you're given a template to fill in. But art can take so many forms: music, journaling, reading, writing, dancing, socializing, taking in a show or a concert, watching a performance where so many parts and pieces come together and create something magical. Prayer, spirituality, family, friends, and gathering, spending purposeful time with people that we love or care about. And, maybe we have needs from that person, or maybe we're the ones doing the giving, and any type of spiritual activity. And I don't necessarily connect spiritual activities to religion, but they certainly can be religion as well. That next slide for me. I think one thing that we often then also forget about is the power of laughter. Laughter and humor, they do so many magical things for us. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced, having somebody talk to you about laughter where they make you purposefully laugh, because it's really awkward when you first do it. But once you kind of get into the role of it, it's almost impossible to stop. If we can go to that next slide, I want you to see all of the things that are affected positively in our body, in our mind, in our soul when we laugh. And, maybe there's not a lot of funny stuff going on around us, but maybe we could choose to go to a funny movie or meet up with that person who just fills our cup and they just say hilarious things that you wouldn't think anyone would say out loud. Or we go to a comedy show. But our heart rate, our respiratory function, our oxygen consumption, those are all improved. Our muscle tone improves. If you are feeling down and out because you've just gone through a horrible treatment and you can't even bring yourself to get up and walk around the house, if you could put on a show that might make you laugh, you're still using your muscles. You're still increasing your heart, your respiratory function, your oxygen consumption. Our sympathetic nervous system is assisted and our blood pressure can be helped or decreased. We lower our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and our stress hormones do nasty things to us. It's almost like acid in our body. So if we can overcome some of the effects of our stress hormones when we're in times of worry, it's almost an immediate difference and it can actually decrease our pain as well. There is a reward system in our brain that's activated by laughter. Kind of similar to like a sugar craving. We have the sugar craving and it hits the brain. It's similar, but it's obviously better for us than a sugar craving, right? That raises our beta endorphins. That's that feel good chemical that we have. It's almost impossible to feel miserable after you just got done laughing. It increases our human growth hormone, definitely helps decrease our pain and increase our pain tolerance. It decreases our glucose levels, reduces that hyperinflation of the lungs with COPD. It reduces stress and anxiety, and it may only be temporary, but it's still a break from stress and anxiety. It will reduce agitation, and agitation easily comes with pain. Improvements of cognitive function just gives us clarity, and it can decrease inflammation with chronic conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or, even inflammatory conditions or autoimmune diseases. Okay, let's go to the next one. So let's take all that in for a second and let's just gain a different perspective. Let's pretend for a moment that this is your car, and this is your car sitting out in the driveway, and you don't have anything that you have to do today. You've got money in your wallet, you've got the day off, it is beautiful outside, and you have the opportunity to just go drive this beautiful machine up and down the coast and view the ocean or through the mountains. Okay? Next slide. Well, before you set out for that day of fun, you are going to have to go gas this bad boy up. Okay. So when you're looking at this selection of gas, you've got money in your wallet, so price isn't an issue here. I'm guessing you're at least going to go with the premium, right? Somebody unmute here and tell me which one of these gases that you're going to pick to put in this beautiful piece of machinery. I have one brave soul. Okay.
The, the,
Well,
s- the super.
the super. And why? Why are you going to put super in that machine?
Did you see that car?
Right. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next slide here. So we're going to take that analogy and understand that your body, your mind, your soul, they are your temple, right? And how many of us view ourselves as that beautiful red piece of machinery that sits in the driveway? But we should, right? And if we don't, then we're selling ourselves short. So going to the next slide there, then I also need to ask you, what is your fuel? What are you doing to build that self up? Because we can talk about stress all day, we can talk about pain all day, we can talk about calming our stress, but there's more to it than just sitting and calming ourselves down. So the picture on the right there shows what the majority of us see every time we walk into a store. And this even includes CVS pharmacy or Walgreens. I'm not trying to call them out specifically, but we think of those things as a healthy place to go, or a place to go when we need things to improve our health. And so I encourage you not only to think about what you're doing with yourself, but also how you are treating your body, your temple, your Lamborghini. Okay? Because what we put into our body definitely affects our mood, our ability to deal with stress, our ability to heal, our ability to be grateful, to feel good. So let's go one more slide, please. This doesn't only include the food that we put into our body or the nutrition that we're giving ourselves, but there's other ways that we fuel ourselves and we find our ability to be grateful and choose good things for ourselves. So the things that are on the left are very common in society today, and they're habitual. Okay, a lot of the things that are on the left side of this screen are addictive in nature. So, worry and anxiety, they are habits and they are addicting. Once we get into patterns of using those as our mechanism to deal with things in life, that continues for us until we choose to break that. Being on our devices, or the person that's laying on the couch there, yes, they're relaxing, but also they're alone
You're on my
and they're
video,
choosing
Peter.
to take that in. Go ahead.
You're on the video. If you can just stay out of the kitchen a little bit.
Oh.
Thanks.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I've got video games on there, I've got our cell phones on there, I've also got television, Netflix, all the things that we take in. Now, I'm not saying that taking these things in isn't okay at times, but if it's the only thing that we're doing, what are we fueling ourselves with? Now, if we look at the pictures that are on the right, at the top there, you could see that as a Bible, you could see that as a book, you could see that as gaining knowledge, being intentional about those things. We've got exercise on there. We've got time with a friend, or, intentionally laughing or having a good time. We've got nature. We've got surrounding ourselves with family. And that family doesn't necessarily mean that those are our blood birthright people. I am somebody who didn't grow up in a traditional family, but I have built very strong relationships in what I consider to be my family, with people who poured into me and were intentional about my success in life. So we can say, well, I don't have those family ties here and I'm alone here. However, you can be intentional about finding those people in your path that are going to fill you up and build you. We'll go to that next slide. It's also really important for us to remember that if we're consuming, we're not creating our own lives. And so consuming means we're taking in all this information from social media, from television, from, politics, all the things that are going on around us that can create stress and worry in our lives. If we're only consuming that information, we aren't creating then our own positive habits, our own health, our own ability to manage our stress. All right, that next slide. I also want you to keep in mind that in that temple that you have, we have 11 systems in our body. Okay, integumentary system is our skin, our skeletal system, our muscular system, our nervous system, our endocrine system, cardiovascular, lymphatic, respiratory, digestive, urinary, and reproductive. Next slide for me. Every single system of our body needs hydration, a well-balanced diet, avoiding dangerous things like preservatives, dyes, excessive sugar, drugs, vaping, smoking, alcohol. It requires exercise, movement, and strength to function. Every single system of our body requires those movements in order to function appropriately. Sleep, especially REM or deep sleep for body repair and decreased stress and just overall rest and stress management. We have to be able to manage our stress because our stress builds up inside of us like an acid, like I described. And we need to be intentional and purposeful about getting some relaxation, meditation, and/or mindfulness. Our systems actually work better and can only function when we provide these things to it. Next slide for me. So what does it take to make a change? Because we are creatures of habit. Change is hard, right? I'm not going to sit here in front of you and pretend like change isn't hard, but we are capable of change. All of us are. And guess what? You are 100% successful at getting through hard days so far, so you are capable of doing it. So mindset's important because if you think you can't do this or change things about your intentions or the way that you choose to live or the things you choose to do and practice, if you think you can't do that because you're too used to your normal routine, then you're going to be right. But if you think you can do it, you're definitely going to be right as well. Our habits, they influence our actions often without us even being aware of it. So I'm going to ask you guys to pop on to unmute real quick. Everybody, please unmute. I would like just you guys to throw out a few things that you do in your daily routine that aren't serving you. You do them just because you've always done them that way, or it's a habit, but they're not serving you in a positive way.
I'll start. I guess looking at Facebook every day.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of us are guilty of that.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I need to stop that.
Yeah. It really draws
Yeah.
us in. And you know what? It's designed to be addictive. So putting it down is hard to do. And for me, I actually have chosen to not allow myself any time on that for the first 15 minutes of the day. That was like a simple change that I did, and it actually made it easier for me to put it down other times of the day. Keep throwing them out there.
Having conversations that don't go anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, we can be definitely intentional about those, or we can choose not to have conversations with that people that don't serve us. I'll give you an example. My daughter, her roommate in college has recently gone through a breakup, and every conversation that they have had in the last 3 months has been revolved around the breakup. And so now my daughter is saying, I love this person dearly, but I can't have a conversation with her today because it isn't serving me.
Right.
Yeah. How about the things we take into our body, things that are addictive for us?
Chocolate.
Oh, chips.
Yeah,
Coffee.
coffee. Yeah. You
Wine.
know, I purposely took myself off of caffeine this year, and I was really starting to rely on it, and I didn't want to have an addiction to it. And it was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Pop.
Pop. Yeah.
I used to drink a lot of pop, and I was going on a trip, and I knew they wouldn't have. I like 7-Up. I knew they wouldn't have it where I was going to be, so I have not had one since January 22nd.
That's beautiful. Let me tell you, this is a fun fact about pop in case you need a reason to stop drinking pop or to slow down on drinking pop. It takes 40 glasses of water to undo the effects of one pop in your body. Yeah, pretty crazy. I love to hear that you guys are breaking habits. Like, that's amazing. What else do you guys have for me?
I used to
Well,
enjoy a glass of wine more often than I should probably, but now that I'm going through treatment, that I can't. And
Yeah,
I really don't miss it, I have to say. I even go out with people for dinner and they have a glass of wine and I just have water or whatever.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. I think alcohol too has become attached to just social, and where it may not be a problem for you in your life. I've gone, 3, 4 months at a time without having a single drink just because I don't care to drink that much. But then I'll have a drink, and the way it makes me feel is just, ugh, it's not worth it. hmm Staying up too late is one that's hard for me.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
hmm Yeah. So we have some really good examples. Is there anybody else that really wants to share one?
Fast food?
Fast food is a great one. Yeah. And it's convenient. There's a lot of reasons that people go to fast food. Sometimes it's a craving, sometimes it's a time constraint. So to avoid going to fast food, it takes some planning. It takes being intentional about that. I will tell you that I have tried to involve my entire family in that to make it a little bit easier on me. It takes a little bit of organization, but it works out and it saves a lot of money. Yeah. So these are really good examples. And I think every one of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, we can identify things that we do in our everyday lives that are not serving us. So, you know, these things are reinforced by the immediate satisfaction that they provide. So we do have to be intentional if we want long-term results for things that don't give us immediate satisfaction. But if you can make it to a 30 or 60-day mark of doing these things, they do give you a lot of satisfaction because you feel better. Maybe you lose weight, you gain confidence. It's easier to move. There's a lot of things that are there that will make the intention stick if you can stick with it. So next slide for me, please. We're just about at our hour mark. There's a couple little statements that I want to give you to think about here. I want you to be realistic, patient, and give yourself grace. This isn't a pass-fail situation. Sometimes we have really big goals for ourselves and we say, okay, I'm going to exercise, and that means I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. Well, if we don't exercise 5 days a week, then we feel like we failed and we decide we're going to stop. So instead of doing that, go ahead and slip to that next slide for me. Be specific about what your goals are. Create a supportive environment, whether that means you have accountability with someone who's going to do this with you, or somebody that you're telling about your successes or the things you're frustrated about. Track your progress. So instead of saying, I am going to come hell or high water, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, and then when you don't meet that goal, you fall off of everything, keep track of a month and see how many times you get that in that month. Because if the previous month you exercised twice, but this month you were intentional and you exercised 13 times, that is so much better than just falling off because you didn't hit your goal of 5. Does that make sense? Use reminders and cues. So for me, I pair things together. I wanted to be more intentional about drinking water. So in the morning when I get up and brush my teeth, which is the first thing I do, I have a 3-ounce Dixie cup next to my sink, and I purposely drink 2 to 3 Dixie cups. So I've actually gotten in a full glass of water right as I start my day. So I pair things together that will help me be more successful. And that's habit stacking. That's similar too. So if maybe your favorite show is, I can't think of a good one, American Idol, and you really want to watch American Idol, then maybe you need to be intentional about exercising at the same time that you're watching American Idol. So if you can put your bike in front of it, or get a little mini trampoline and just do a little bit of rebounding, or there's lots of exercise routines or even stretching that you could do so that you pair it with something that you really want and it's already a natural reward. Building a support network is really important, and do give yourself rewards, but make sure that those rewards are healthy and good for you and something that you learn to look forward to. Next slide. You may need to set some healthy boundaries for yourself in order to be able to do this. Sometimes we realize when we go through something catastrophic like cancer that the relationships in our lives don't serve us, or the job that we're in isn't right for us, or there are just some things that we need to stand up and say, I can't do this anymore in order to be the healthiest version of myself. Next slide. And I really encourage you to make a new tradition out of celebration. We should be intentional about celebrating even small wins or gains in our lives, doing that with intention with people that we love, or posting it on hey, I accomplished this on our social media, because people will be happy for you and congratulate you and want to share. And that is contagious. So I encourage you to do that. Next slide. And I will end with, make your gratitude known. Appreciate the people who are around you who take the time to do little things for you, even if they're mundane things that are not that big of a deal. Make sure that you are intentional about appreciating the people in your life or the situations that serve you best. And I appreciate your time today. I hope that this was helpful for you and that you gained some different perspectives. And I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
This was very, very, very good.
Yeah.
I am a second time breast cancer survivor, and some of the things that were done for me, for friends that I'd met with just in the past 3 years of living here, the support group I'm going to now, I have a friend that has a very, very, very traumatic cancer. So some of the things that were done for me that I had never thought of, now I will pass on and take care of her as well in the same way.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Sometimes we get twisted gifts from cancer. And that is, sometimes relationships that we thought were really important to us, they will dissolve because people don't know how to deal with our hard. But sometimes people step up for us in ways that we would have never expected. And we meet people who are incredible, and they add something to our lives that wasn't there before. And I think that is a way that we can live a better version of ourselves after going through something like this.
I also felt during my cancer when people would say, "You have cancer for the second time? I am so sorry." And I said, "Don't be sorry for me. Just do a prayer, do something for someone today
Yeah.
that makes you feel good."
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. I know we don't like to hear that sorry. Going through something difficult, you don't want pity. That's not what helps you feel better. So I think us also being intentional about how people can help us. If there's something specific, if bringing a meal over or somebody sitting or making you laugh. I had a good friend that went through it and said, the only thing I want from people is to send me things that make me laugh. Right? So be intentional. If somebody wants to help you, but they don't know how, that's a really great way for you to step in and provide intention and teach them how to do something different in that moment, for sure.
And I had to learn to be careful with my expectations.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I just had to drop them because until they may not have been able to see the bigger picture. They may
Yeah.
not understand. We don't know what's going on in their life. And that was hard with relationships. And yes, mine, they did change.
Yeah.
But I feel better because of them. And some people aren't in my circle anymore, and that's okay.
That's such a great comment. And I
Mhm.
think we need to look at that through a few different lenses. Number one, people are only capable of doing things for us per their own experiences. So if they've never experienced the hard that you're going through, they can empathize with you, but they can't be in your shoes. And so our expectations need to be realistic. But we also need to understand that sometimes people's actions, even though they hurt us or they affect us in certain ways, their actions are about them. They're
Right.
not about us. And if we can learn to separate those two things, it
Right.
can really take a lot of weight off of our
Oh, yeah.
plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. That's a really good point, and I think it probably resonates with everybody who's listening today. I know that A Time to Heal is partnering with me for an event that I have coming up at the end of the month. It's called Resilience Survivorship. If you haven't heard about it, I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about it real quick. It is a really good opportunity to put into play everything that we've talked about today. It is a public service event around survivorship. It's for men and women, any type of cancer, as well as loved ones or supporters. And this is a day where we get intentional about all these things. We provide education on a lot of different topics related to survivorship. Some of them that are uncomfortable to talk about that you wouldn't normally ask questions about, but you're feeling it and you need answers. And we also are bringing together several businesses and services throughout the community that help us deal with wellness in all capacities: mental wellness, emotional wellness, physical wellness, nutrition, medical, life planning, financial. I mean, everything that you can think of. We've tried to bring somebody in from every angle. And a lot of the people who participate in the conference are survivors, but and or they work in the community of cancer. So A Time to Heal is actually one of our sponsors and presenters. So I would encourage you guys to look into that. If you need any information, I'd be happy to get it to you. But that would be an extension of some of the things we've talked about today. Any other questions I can answer for you?
I am proud of the person that you have become, and thank you for all of your knowledge.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't want to make this talk about me, but I think it's important that I don't just sit up here and tell you to do something that I haven't actually experienced for myself. So I think providing real life examples of what and how I did this for myself is important.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. Agree.
I think one thing that makes my job meaningful to me and makes me good at my job is that I can relate to just about anybody, because I've been in the trenches of being homeless. I've been in the trenches of watching and living through addiction. I've been through abuse. I've been through breast surgery. I've been through a lot of the things that you all experience as well. And finding those points of connection make them really relevant. Well, thank you all for your time today. My contact information is on there. So if you have any questions for me further that you didn't want to ask on here, any suggestions for me, or you just want to get in touch, please do so. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and get some sunshine today.
Thank you. You as
Thank
well.
you.
Thank you.